Alright guys, so we got another 5-inch FPV racing drone here on the channel. This one's from HGLRC. It's called the Wind5 Lite. I'm going to go over the specs real quick and then we'll get right into the flight characteristics. So typical 5-inch for end of 2020, beginning of 2021. I don't think I ever reviewed the original Wind5, and I'm not sure why they call this one the Lite. From the specs I was seeing, it doesn't seem that this was all that much lighter. This actually is quite a bit more beefed up. Anyway, so the frame here, it's a True X frame here, individual arms. All the arms are 5 millimeters thick. You have these bracing in the front and the back to beef this up. Those are 4 millimeters thick, and that's obviously for crashes. And these plates here, the sandwich plates, the top one here is 2.5 millimeters. Bottom one here is 2 millimeters, and the top plate is 2 millimeters. So for the electronics here, we have a 745 or an F7 stack. It's got the F745 chip. And then you got a 45 amp 4-in-1 BLE 32-bit ESC 3 to 6S, and this is a 6S setup here. We have the new AOLIS branded motors from HGLRC 2205 or 2207.5 1900 kV. This does come in a 2207.5 1750 kV and a 2550 kV version. So obviously the 1750 and 1900 kV are 6S capable, and the 2550 is only going to be for 4S. And the motors come in either a gold color or a blue color. For the props, you have the Gem Van Hurricane 51466 prop, pretty standard prop these days. And for the FPV system, we've got the Caddx Vista with the Nebula Nano camera, and we have a different antenna here. It's the Hammer from HGLRC. It's their branded antenna instead of the Rush FPV one that normally comes with the Vista. So pretty typical 5-inch build here. Nothing really different or really all that interesting to talk about. I mean, it's just like any other 5-inch build out there, and they've obviously beefed it up so it'll, hold up to a lot of crashes and stuff. Although I didn't really crash this a whole lot. This is gonna perform pretty much as expected. I don't expect this to be particularly brittle or break very easily. The frame is a True X frame. All the electronics here are, pretty upgraded. Nowadays, everything is going to be like basically geared toward 32-bit ESCs and or F7 processors. I think that's kind of the progression now you're seeing. So like, maybe earlier this year you were seeing F4s and maybe standard BLE S ESCs, and now we're seeing 32-bit ESCs and F7s. So those are kind of things, basically for the same price, you're getting a little bit upgrades, and they're coming out with obviously the latest boards there. I think I've already reviewed these boards, the 745 stack from a while back. Now, I did fly this on 6S. I used the 1050 6S Owlline. I don't actually, if you want to really push the limits of this one, I'd probably go to a 1300. This power setup will definitely handle it no problem. I mean, they went with a 2207.5, so they're kind of going between the 2207 and a 2208, kind of a little bit less than a 2208, so just to reduce the weight a little bit, but you get kind of that similar power. And at 1900 kV, this is, especially if you're going to get the 1900 kV, I would recommend getting a bigger battery. You're going to get less voltage sag when you're trying to do harder maneuvers. Now, the thing is about this, it does come in an analog version, and I'd say for racing, if you guys are hardcore racers and looking at this for racing, I would recommend getting the analog version, because the Nebula Nano here on this DJI version is not really the best suited for a racing setup, because you can't use the low latency mode that you can on the DJI camera. So your latency is in the 40 to 50 millisecond range on this camera. So it's not really ideally suited for those of you guys that are getting this for hardcore racing. Obviously, if you're just kind of getting into racing, you just want something a little bit more, beefed up, maybe if you're going to crash a lot and just for practicing, maybe the higher latency won't bother you too much. But obviously, if you're really into serious racing, I would suggest getting the analog version of this instead of the DJI version, because it's going to have the lower latency. I think that if they did want to target the racers on this one, they should have probably used the DJI camera instead of the Nebula Nano camera. Well, we'll talk about that in a future video, but yeah, basically, I think the version I have here is not really suited for the hardcore racers. I'd say get the analog version instead of the DJI version. It's pretty much it. Let me just go ahead and show you how much this stuff weighs. It's right in the ballpark of a lot of other racers here. So let's put it on here with just the drone. All right, just the drone by itself is coming in at about 335.3 grams, and then with the 6S battery I flew it with, coming at 534 grams. So just to give you an idea of what the weight is of the flying that you're going to see. Anyway, I think that's going to cover for this model. Do you want to know if from those of you guys that do watch my channel regularly, do you fly 5-inch racers that often? Are you that interested in this? Because I may decline reviewing these models in the future because I'm not really into racing myself. But you know, of course, if you are, then I'll continue to review them as best I can. But you know, 5-inch racing drones are kind of all the same nowadays. You know, they have slightly different motors and like they're just getting better ESCs and stuff like that. But you know, in terms of the performance in the last year or so, year and a half, it really, I can't tell much difference. It just seems like they're all about the same. You know, the different motors do feel a little bit differently. You know, 2207, 2208, 2306, that kind of thing. But in terms of like what they do and how they feel, you can change the props a little bit, change the motors a little bit. But all in all, they're basically the same in my view. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. And here's the flight footage, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. All right, so going to full throttle, you're getting a oscillation there. Try it again. And a little bit of an oscillation. So I'm going to try and stay away from full throttle. And not sure if I agree with the choice of camera here. I would have gone with the DJI camera because you can't go into low latency mode on the Nebula Nano, and if you're doing racing you want lower latency. So you know, when you're trying to fly quickly or make a lot of quick moves, you can probably, those of you guys that do a lot of racing, probably tell. Yeah, the tune is needs a little work. You can hear it kind of oscillating. Now that the voltage has come down a little bit, it's not as bad. So let's try going here, and yeah, there's still a little bit there. You can hear it in the hard turns. The motors are probably kind of warm, I imagine. Not so bad that I would want to land it and not fly it, but yeah, I could imagine they're probably going to be a little bit warm. You can hear it when you're making a lot of hard turns. As the voltage gets lower, obviously the PIDs are going to be more adjusted to this lower voltage, so it doesn't sound as bad. Alright, so I think you guys get the picture. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.